Keanu Reeves was standing in line at his own cafe in disguise. Nobody knew who he was. He had just paid for a sandwich. And then two cashiers said something that made him freeze, mid-step, sandwich still in his hand. What he heard next would change three people's lives forever. It was just past noon. The sun was high over the Oregon coast. Waves crashed against a rock below. Seagulls circled over a small wooden building with a faded blue sign. The sign said one word, Harmony. Inside, the smell of fresh bread filled the air. Coffee machines hissed. Plates clinked. It looked like any small cafe you'd find in any small town. But this cafe was not ordinary, because the man who owned it was Keanu Reeves. Yes, that Keanu Reeves. The actor, the man from the big movies. The man with the motorcycles and the quiet smile. Most people didn't know he owned this place. He liked it that way. He had built Harmony years ago. Not for fame, not for money. He already had enough of both. He built it because he wanted one place that felt real, a place where people could sit, eat a warm meal, and feel like they mattered, take care of people, treat them right, let the rest take care of itself. That was the whole idea, and for a long time it worked. But today, Keanu was about to learn something that would stop him in his tracks, something that would test everything he believed about the place he built. It started with something small, a sandwich. Keanu pulled his old gray hoodie over his head. He wore a plain baseball cap, low over his eyes. He had sunglasses on, even though the sky was cloudy. People rarely expect a movie star to be standing in line at a small cafe, wearing a hoodie with a coffee stain on the sleeve. Most people see what they expect to see. He did this once a month, sometimes more. He'd drive out alone, no security, no assistant, park his old truck around the corner, walking like any other customer. Why? Because numbers on a spreadsheet don't tell you the truth. People do. If you want to know how a business is really running, you don't ask the manager. You stand in line. You listen. You watch how people treat each other when they think no one important is watching. That was Keanu's rule. It had never let him down. Until today. The bell above the door rang as he stepped inside. Harmony was busy. Lunch rush. A dozen tables full. The line at the counter was 4 people deep. Keanu took his place at the back of the line. He looked around, slow and quiet, the way he always did. Wooden tables, soft yellow lighting, a chalkboard menu with handwritten letters, photos on the wall of the coastline, the kind a regular customer might have taken. It still looked like home. He felt a small wave of pride. This was the place he had pictured years ago, when it was just an idea in his head, a drawing on a napkin. Now it was real. Now it was full of people enjoying their lunch. He stepped forward in line. 2 people ahead of him. An old man fumbled with his wallet, trying to pay with coins. The cashier sighed, loud enough for the old man to hear. Keanu noticed that. He filed it away. Small thing, maybe nothing. He kept watching. Behind the counter were 2 young cashiers. Their name tag said Tyler and Madison. They were maybe in their early 20s. Quick hands. Fast smiles to the customers. The kind of smiles that look real if you're not paying attention. But Keanu was paying attention. He noticed something in the way Tyler rolled his eyes after a customer turned away. He noticed Madison's smile drop the second someone looked down at their phone instead of her. Small cracks. The kind most people would miss. Keanu didn't miss them. He stepped closer to the counter. 2 people left in front of him now. An older woman, maybe 60 years old, stepped up to order. She moved slowly. She wore a faded jacket and carried a worn cloth bag. "Can I get a small soup, please?" "Just the cup, not the bowl," she said. Her voice was soft, almost apologetic, as if she was sorry to be taking up their time. Madison rang it up without looking at her. "Anything else?" "No, that's all." "Thank you, dear." The woman shuffled toward a table near the window. She sat down slowly, the way people do when their knees aren't what they used to be. Keanu watched her go. Then he heard it, the sentence that stopped him cold. Tyler leaned toward Madison, not whispering, not really, just talking the way people talk when they think no one is listening. "That's like the 3rd time this week she's come in for the small soup," Tyler said. "She always sits here for like 2 hours. Such a waste of a table." Madison laughed, a short, Sharp laugh. I know, right? She probably can't even afford the bread bowl. It's kind of sad, honestly. Like, just stay home if you can't tip. Keanu's whole body went still. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stood there, 2 feet from the counter, listening. For a second, the noise of the cafe seemed to fade away. The clinking plates, the hissing coffee machine, all of it disappeared. All he could hear was that laugh. That sentence, just stay home if you can't tip. His jaw tightened. This was not the harmony he had built. This was not what he meant when he told his managers. Over and over, everyone who walks through that door deserves to feel welcome, no matter what they order, no matter what they're wearing, no matter how much money they have in their pocket. He had said that sentence 100 times in meetings. He believed it with his whole chest. And here it was being mocked 2 feet away from him by 2 people wearing his name tag. Keanu took a breath. He thought about walking out, coming back another day with his manager, asking quiet questions, fixing this the calm way. But something in him said no. Not yet. He needed to know more. Was this just one bad moment? A slip of the tongue on a busy day? Or was this who Tyler and Madison really were every single day when the cameras weren't watching and the owner was in the room? He needed to see it for himself. So Keanu stepped forward. It was his turn to order. Hey, what can I get you? Tyler said, not looking up from the register. Keanu kept his voice low, different from his normal speaking voice. A trick he'd learned from years on film sets, changing his tone for a role. Just a turkey sandwich, please. And a coffee. That's it. Tyler rang it up without a second glance. Keanu paid in cash. He didn't want a card with his name on it showing up on the screen. Name for the order? Keanu paused. Charlie. Cool. It'll be a few minutes, Charlie. Keanu nodded and stepped to the side, near the pickup counter. Close enough to keep listening. Far enough to not be noticed. He watched. The old woman with the small soup sat by the window, slowly stirring her cup, looking out at the ocean. She looked content. Peaceful, even. She had no idea what had just been said about her. Keanu felt something twist in his chest. This woman came here every week. She trusted this place. She trusted his place. And the people behind the counter, the ones wearing his name, were mocking her for being lonely, for not having much money, for simply existing in a way that wasn't convenient for them. He clenched his jaw and kept watching. A few minutes passed. More customers came and went. A man in work boots ordered a coffee, paid with exact change, counted out slowly. Tyler sighed again, the same loud sigh from before. A young mother came in with a crying toddler, trying to order quickly while bouncing the baby on her hip. Madison rolled her eyes at Tyler. Tyler smirked back. None of the customers seemed to notice. They were too busy living their lives, too trusting to think anyone behind the counter at a cozy little cafe would be silently judging them. But Keanu noticed everything. This wasn't one bad moment. This was a pattern, a daily habit, a culture that had somehow grown inside his cafe without him knowing. And then something happened that made it even worse. A side door opened near the kitchen. An older man stepped out, wiping his hands on his apron. Gray hair, kind eyes, a name tag that read Walter. Walter was the dishwasher. He'd worked at Harmony since the very first month it opened. Keanu remembered hiring him personally years ago, back when the place was brand new and short on staff. Walter walked toward the front counter, holding a small tray of clean mugs. Here you go, Walter said, setting the tray down gently. Fresh out of the wash. Tyler barely looked at him. Finally, took you long enough, old man. Walter chuckled softly, the way people do when they're used to being talked to like that, like it didn't bother him anymore, like he had made peace with it a long time ago. Sorry, son, these hands don't move like they used to. Madison snickered behind her hand. Honestly, why do they even keep him around? He's like 100 years old. We could hire someone who actually moves fast. Tyler laughed. Seriously, it's basically charity at this point. Walter didn't say anything. He just turned and walked back toward the kitchen, his shoulders a little lower than before. Keanu's hands curled into fists at his sides. He remembered Walter's interview from years ago. He remembered Walter telling him about his late wife, about the medical bills that came after she got sick, about how this job, this simple dishwashing job, had kept him afloat during the hardest years of his life. Walter never asked for pity. He never asked for anything. He just showed up every single day and did his work quietly. And now 2 kids barely out of their teens were laughing at him behind his back, calling his job charity. Something inside Keanu shifted. This was no longer about watching and waiting. This was personal. But Keanu still didn't move. Not yet. Years of working in this business, years of watching people, had taught him something important. Don't act on anger. Act on truth. If he walked up right now and revealed himself, what would happen? Tyler and Madison would apologize. They would say all the right things. They would be scared, not sorry. And the moment he walked away, would anything actually change? Maybe, maybe not. He needed proof. He needed the full picture. Not just one overheard conversation, but the pattern underneath it. So he did something quiet. He pulled out his phone, the old, cracked one he used when he didn't want to be noticed, and opened the Notes app. He started writing down everything. The time, what was said, who said it, Walter's name, the old woman with the soup, the young mother with the crying baby. He would talk to his general manager. He would pull the security footage from the past few weeks, the cameras that were installed in every Harmony location for safety, never reviewed unless there was a problem. There was a problem now. His order number was called. Order for Charlie. Keanu stepped forward and picked up his sandwich and coffee. He nodded a small thank you, careful to keep his voice low. He walked to a table in the corner, the same one he always chose when he visited in disguise, a spot with a clear view of the counter, but tucked away enough that no one paid him any attention. He sat down. He unwrapped his sandwich, but he didn't eat right away. He looked around the cafe one more time, at the old woman by the window, still slowly drinking her soup, completely unaware of what had been said about her, at the young mother, finally getting her toddler settled, smiling with relief now that the chaos had passed, at Walter, visible through the small kitchen window, scrubbing dishes with his head down. This was supposed to be a place where people felt safe, felt cared for, felt seen. Instead, behind the warm lighting and the smell of fresh bread, something cold had been growing, quietly, for who knows how long. Keanu took a slow breath, and finally, he understood what he had to do. Not today, not in anger, but soon, and it would not be quiet. He finished his sandwich, slowly, watching the rhythm of the cafe continue around him. Customers came. Customers went. Tyler and Madison kept smiling their practice smiles at anyone they thought was worth the effort. Before he left, Keanu walked past the counter one more time. He paused, just for a second. "Hey," he said, his voice still low, still disguised. "That older guy, the one washing dishes. He's been here a long time, huh?" Tyler shrugged. "Yeah, forever." "Why?" "No reason," Keanu said. "Just noticed him. He seems like a hard worker." Madison gave a small, fake smile. "Oh, totally. He's great." Keanu nodded slowly and walked out the door, the bell ringing behind him. He didn't look back, but his mind was already moving fast. This was no longer about a sandwich. This was about Harmony, about what it stood for, about the people who trusted it every single day without knowing what was happening behind the counter. And Keanu Reeves was not going to let it slide. 3 days passed. Keanu didn't go back to the cafe right away. He needed time. He needed facts. He called his general manager, a woman named Renata, who had worked with him since the very beginning. Renata was sharp, fair, and someone Keanu trusted completely. "I need the security footage from Harmony," Keanu told her over the phone. "The last 2 weeks, front counter angle. Is everything okay?" Renata asked, concern creeping into her voice. "I'm not sure yet," Keanu said. "That's what I need to find out." Renata didn't ask more questions. She knew Keanu well enough to trust his instincts. By the next morning, Keanu had access to footage. He sat alone in his home office, the curtains drawn, a cup of coffee going cold beside him. He pressed play, and what he saw confirmed his worst fear. It wasn't just one bad day. Clip after clip showed the same pattern, over and over. Tyler rolling his eyes at elderly customers. Madison sighing loudly at anyone who counted change slowly. Both of them whispering and laughing whenever Walter walked past. Never loud enough for customers to hear clearly, but always cruel. In one clip, a woman in a wheelchair asked for help carrying her tray to the table. Madison sighed and said, loud enough that the woman could probably still hear, "I'm not her assistant." Keanu felt sick watching it. This wasn't a one-time slip. This was a habit, a culture, something that had grown quietly, in a place that was supposed to be the opposite of all this, and worse. Keanu realized something even more troubling. No other manager had caught it. No customer had complained loud enough to be noticed. Tyler and Madison were good at their job in front of the people who mattered. They smiled for the regulars who tipped well. They smiled for anyone who looked important. But for anyone they decided didn't matter, the mask came off. That was the most dangerous kind of unkindness, the kind that hides in plain sight. Keanu closed his laptop. He sat back in his chair and thought about Walter. Walter, who had worked there since day one. Walter, who never complained, who showed up every single day with kind eyes and tired hands, no matter how he was treated. How long had this been going on? How many people had walked out of Harmony feeling small, feeling unwelcome, feeling exactly the opposite of what Keanu had promised the world this place would be? He picked up his phone and called Renata. "I'm coming back," he said. "Tomorrow. And I want everyone there. The full team." What should I tell them? Renata asked. Keanu paused. "Tell them nothing," he said. "Let them wonder." The next day, Harmony Cafe closed early for what staff were told was a team meeting. Tyler and Madison showed up, a little confused, but not worried. Why would they be worried? As far as they knew, they were good employees. Friendly, fast, always smiling at the right people. Walter showed up too, quiet as always, sitting near the back of the small group gathered in the dining area. Other staff members filled in the rest of the chairs. Cooks, servers, the morning shift and the evening shift, all together for the first time in a long while. Renata stood at the front of the room. "Thanks for coming in, everyone. We have someone who wants to speak with you today." The side door opened, and Keanu Reeves walked in. No hoodie, no sunglasses, no disguise. Just him. The room went completely silent. A few people gasped. Someone dropped a pen. Tyler's mouth fell open. Madison's face went pale. "Wait, is that?" Someone whispered. Keanu raised a hand, gentle, asking for quiet. "Yes," he said simply. "It's me. I own Harmony." He looked around the room slowly, meeting the eyes of every single person there. Cooks who had worked there for years. Servers who showed up early and stayed late. And finally, his eyes landed on Walter, sitting quietly in the back. Keanu smiled at him, small and warm. Then his expression changed. He looked at Tyler. He looked at Madison. "I've been coming here for years," Keanu said, his voice calm but firm. Not as Keanu Reeves, just as a customer. Sitting in line, ordering a sandwich, watching how this place actually runs when no cameras are pointed at me and no one's trying to impress the boss. The room was so quiet you could hear the ocean waves outside the windows. 3 days ago, Keanu continued, I stood in this cafe in a hoodie and a baseball cap. I ordered a turkey sandwich. And while I waited, I heard something that I will never forget. He looked directly at Tyler and Madison now. I heard 2 of my employees mock an elderly woman for ordering a small soup. I heard them say she should, quote, stay home if she can't tip. A few people in the room turned to look at Tyler and Madison. Their faces had gone from pale to red. I watched them roll their eyes at a working man counting exact change. I watched them get annoyed at a mother trying to manage her crying child. And then, Keanu's voice tightened slightly. I watched them mock Walter, a man who has worked here since the very first day this place opened. A man who has never once complained, never once been anything but kind, even while being laughed at behind his back. Walter's eyes went wide. He hadn't realized Keanu had heard that part. His cheeks flushed, embarrassed to suddenly be the center of attention. Tyler opened his mouth, maybe to explain, maybe to apologize. Keanu held up a hand, not unkindly, but firmly. I'm not finished. Keanu pulled out a tablet from under his arm. He turned the screen toward the room. I pulled the security footage. 2 weeks of it. I watched every single clip. He pressed play. The room watched in stunned silence as clip after clip played. The customers no one else had noticed being mistreated. The whispered jokes. The fake smiles that dropped the second customer turned away. By the end, several people in the room looked uncomfortable, even angry. This wasn't who they thought their co-workers were. Keanu set the tablet down. I built Harmony because I believe people deserve to feel cared for, he said, his voice softer now, more reflective, not because of how much money they have, not because of how fast they can pay, or how good they look, or whether they're going to leave a big tip, just because they're people. That's it. That's the whole rule. He looked around the room. Most of you live by that rule every single day. I've watched you do it, even when you didn't know I was watching, and I'm grateful for that more than you know. He paused and turned back to Tyler and Madison. But the two of you broke that rule. Not once, not by accident, over and over, to people who couldn't even fight back. Tyler finally spoke, his voice shaky. Mr. Reeves, we didn't mean anything by it. It was just jokes. We didn't think. That's exactly the problem, Keanu said, cutting in gently but firmly. You didn't think. You didn't think that woman with the small suit might be lonely, and this might be the only warm meal and quiet hours she gets all week. You didn't think that man counting his change might be working 2 jobs just to afford lunch out once in a while. You didn't think Walter has been holding this place together since before either of you worked here. Madison's eyes filled with tears. We're sorry. We really are. I believe you're sorry now, Keanu said. But sorry doesn't undo what was said. Sorry doesn't give back the dignity that was taken from people who trusted this place to treat them with kindness. The room was heavy with silence. Keanu took a breath, his tone shifting from firm to something gentler. Effective today, both of you are being let go from Harmony. Tyler's shoulders dropped. Madison wiped her eyes. This isn't about punishment for the sake of punishment, Keanu continued. It's about protecting what this place means. To everyone who walks through that door. To everyone who works behind that counter. He turned to the rest of the staff. For everyone else in this room, thank you, truly, for showing kindness even when you thought no one was watching. That's who I want representing Harmony. Then, finally, Keanu turned to Walter. The old man looked up, surprised to be addressed directly again. Walter, Keanu said, his voice warm now, almost emotional. I remember hiring you years ago. I remember you telling me about your wife, about the hard years after she passed. I remember you telling me this job meant more to you than just a paycheck. Walter nodded slowly, his eyes glistening. You've shown up every single day since then, Keanu said, through every shift, through every difficult customer, through every person who didn't see your worth. You never once let it change who you are. Keanu walked closer and knelt slightly, so he was at level with Walter, sitting in his chair. I want to fix that. Starting today, you're being promoted to floor supervisor, a raise that reflects how long you've given this place your loyalty. And from now on, every new hire at Harmony goes through training, personally approved by me, about how we treat people. Every person. No exceptions. Walter's hands trembled slightly as he reached up to wipe his eyes. I don't know what to say, Walter whispered. You don't have to say anything, Keanu said, placing a gentle hand on the old man's shoulder. You already showed me everything I needed to know just by how you treated people, even when it wasn't returned. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, someone began to clap. Then another. Within seconds, the whole room was applauding, not for Keanu, but for Walter, for the years of quiet kindness that had finally been seen. Walter sat there, overwhelmed, tears streaming freely now, nodding his thanks to a room full of co-workers who suddenly saw him with new eyes. Keanu stood back up, watching the moment unfold. And for the first time since he walked into that meeting, he allowed himself a small, genuine smile. This was what Harmony was supposed to be. In the weeks that followed, word of what happened spread quietly through the small coastal town. Not because Keanu wanted publicity. He never gave an interview about it. He never posted about it online. But people talk. And what they said was simple. They said the owner of that little cafe by the coast had walked in undercover, heard something he didn't like, and made it right. They said an old dishwasher named Walter had been promoted, and now greeted every customer at the door with a smile that somehow felt brighter than before. They said Harmony somehow felt warmer than it used to, not because the lighting had changed, not because the menu was different, because the people behind the counter meant it now. Every smile, every thank you for coming in, every small kindness offered to anyone who walked through that door, rich or poor, fast or slow, loud or quiet. The old woman with the small soup still came in every week. She still sat by the window, still watched the waves roll in. But now, when she ordered, the new cashier asked her how her week was going and actually waited to hear the answer. Here's the thing about this story that's easy to miss. Keanu Reeves didn't need to do any of this. He had enough money, enough fame. He could have ignored one overheard comment and gone on with his life. But he didn't, because real character isn't shown in the big, loud moments everyone is watching. It's shown in the quiet ones, the ones where nobody important is paying attention, the ones where it would be so easy to just look away. Keanu chose not to look away. He chose to listen, even when it was uncomfortable. He chose to act, even when it meant hard decisions. And in the end, he didn't just fix a problem at one small cafe. He reminded a room full of people what it means to treat others with respect. Not because someone famous is watching, but because it's simply the right thing to do. So here's the real question this story leaves behind. How do you treat people when you think no one important is watching? The waiter who got your order wrong. The cashier moving a little too slow. The quiet co-worker nobody really notices.